Which major action-adventure franchise did Dick Van Dyke turn down? And which member of the Dick Van Dyke Show cast had ties to the mob? Don't miss these and more shocking facts from the classic TV series that made television history.
And action. This is Dick Van Dyke.
The Dick Van Dyke Show was created by Carl Reiner and originally ran on CBS from 1961 to 1966.
Guys, it's 3 o'clock and I promise I chime.
With a total of 158 half-hour episodes spanning 5 seasons.
Back it up until you're lying again.
Many viewers at the time assumed Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore were actually married.
I don't like you.
Which reminds me, a lot of people actually thought the Gilligan's Island castaways were actually stranded on a real island, showing just how powerful TV can be.
You can't do that. You can't do that!
But believe it or not, Dick Van Dyke didn't want Mary Tyler Moore as his TV wife at first. Dick Van Dyke thought she was too young. She was 23 and he was 36. But worse still, Mary Tyler Moore lied about her age, saying that she was 26 to get the part.
Maybe I'm stupid. Of course, Rob, of course.
He later admitted that he was wrong, and they became one of TV's most iconic couples. The show was almost canceled after its first season, where it struggled in the ratings. Producer Sheldon Leonard used the fact that sponsor Procter & Gamble loved the show to push CBS into giving the show another season, as Procter & Gamble was bankrolling most of CBS daytime TV soaps.
Knock off the symposium, let's get down to business. I certainly hope you can see it my way.
So, CBS decided to give the show another chance, putting it right after the Beverly Hillbillies, which made it a top 10 hit in its second season. So basically, fans of the Dick Van Dyke Show owe the Beverly Hillbillies and Procter & Gamble for the fact that we have 5 seasons of the show to watch today.
We don't need any characters around to give the joint atmosphere. Is that clear?
Did you know that the famous producer Sheldon Leonard played Nick the bartender on It's a Wonderful Life?
Get me! I'm giving out wings!
Yeah, he was the one giving angels their wings. Of course, Sheldon was the executive producer for the Dick Van Dyke Show. He took Carl Reiner's concept for the show and shaped it into the hit that it became. You know, and if it wasn't for Sheldon Leonard, there wouldn't have been the Andy Griffith Show.
This is big. This is really big.
Leonard created the idea for the show to lure Griffith into television after seeing Andy starring on Broadway in the rustic comedy No Time for Sergeants, which was also a very funny movie, by the way. Rosemary had been in show business since she was a child. What I personally found very interesting is that Rosemary's family had actual ties to the mob.
Look, kid, we got ways of making you talk, see?
Her father worked for Al Capone, and as a child, she referred to Al Capone as Uncle Al. She was friends with Frank Sinatra, which fits, and her husband played the trumpet for him on occasion. And tragically, Rosemary's husband, Bobby Guy, died suddenly from a severe sudden blood infection on May 27, 1964, at the age of 48. Guy, an acclaimed trumpet player for The Tonight Show, was completely healthy beforehand. He didn't smoke or drink. He just suddenly fell ill. Rosemary was so devastated by his sudden death that after 18 years of marriage that she initially tried to quit her role as Sally Rogers on the Dick Van Dyke Show, but was talked out of it. She never remarried. Mary Tyler Moore's pants caused a network scandal. CBS executives freaked out because Laura wore tight pants instead of dresses. They thought it was too risky for 1960s television. Moore refused to change because she felt real-life housewives just didn't wear nice dresses all day long while cleaning the house. She didn't feel it was very practical. Of course, Mrs. Cleaver from Leave It the Beaver might disagree.
Why did he pick on Richie and no one else?
I don't know.
Rob and Laura's only son in the show was named Richie. In real life, Mary Tyler Moore's only biological child was also named Richie. Believe it or not, Morey Amsterdam, who played Buddy Sorrell,
That's Sorrell with 2 L's.
was almost George Jetson. In 1963, Amsterdam filed a $12,000 lawsuit against Hanna-Barbera for breach of contract. He claimed he had been cast as George Jetson on the Jetsons with a guarantee of 24 episodes. He only recorded one episode before being replaced by George O'Hanlon.
And he knows if he does hit her back, that we're going to punish him.
Dick Van Dyke left high school during his senior year to join the United States Army Air Forces for pilot training during World War II. He was repeatedly rejected at first for being underweight, before being accepted after eating a whole bunch of bananas and drinking a large amount of water prior to the weigh-in. He ended up building sets and performing for military personnel at Majors Army Airfield in Texas. He also served as a radio announcer before he got out in 1946. Interestingly, Dick Van Dyke didn't get his high school diploma until 2004. He never had formal dance or acting classes of any kind. He basically figured it out on his own through his own working experience. Now here's a real amazing bit of trivia. Dick Van Dyke was actually offered the role of James Bond, but he turned down the part, responding, "Have you ever heard my British accent?" When he was 99 years old, he said in an interview with Al Roker that he still regrets turning down the role. But can you imagine Dick Van Dyke as James Bond?
Bond. James Bond.
I can see him tripping over an ottoman and accidentally knocking out secret spies somehow, or maybe dodging bullets with his rubbery dancing skills. Sure would have been interesting. What led to such an offer? Well, it came directly after Van Dyke starred in the 1968 musical fantasy film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's the one with the flying car. That movie was produced by James Bond producer Albert Broccoli and was based on a children's book written by James Bond creator Ian Fleming. When asked what role he would like to do, he said he would like to play Scrooge. I would definitely pay to see Dick Van Dyke play as Scrooge in a big movie production. I love that story anyway.
It may interest you to know that I don't smoke or drink or bite my nails.
Another shocking fact that you may not know, Dick Van Dyke struggled with alcoholism during the entire run of the show, a habit that started as a way to help him overcome his shyness in performing. He did finally beat it in 1972. He has said in interviews that he has never experienced a desire to drink again since then. He made his battle public on the Dick Cavett Show, an unusual move back then, as most stars kept those kinds of problems to themselves. He went on to do a TV movie on the subject called The Morning After in 1974. Dick Van Dyke recently celebrated his 100th birthday. He credits dancing and daily movement to his longevity. The Dick Van Dyke Show won 15 Emmys. The Tonight Show's Johnny Carson almost played Rob Petrie, which would of course have changed TV history forever. The series was originally called Head of the Family and starred Carl Reiner, who played Rob Petrie in the original pilot. It flopped, so Sheldon Leonard recast with Dick Van Dyke and renamed the show. The Dick Van Dyke Show was one of the last major sitcoms filmed entirely in black and white. It ended in 1966. By then, almost everything else had switched to color. Carl Reiner didn't want to change in the middle of the series, but he did authorize a few select episodes be colorized years later. Well, I guess that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to the TV Crazy Man channel for lots more classic TV fun. Please don't forget to leave a comment and talk about your classic TV memories. Y'all have a great day.
Good night, folks.